So one of the things that's been a major talking point amongst the Liverpool fan base this week, and something you picked up on very quickly, was the wage bill increase. Now, you mentioned in the Money Talks podcast that financial analysts, including yourself, expected this to drop by maybe tens of millions, but it's gone up. And on top of that, I wanted to just ask, does it make sense to you that playing staff wages seem to be in and around 40% of the overall wage bill, and what would make up that additional 60%?
Yeah, good question. So obviously, after the Deloitte report was published last week, I put out a thread shortly thereafter, and it got a lot of attention, especially the focus that I made on the wage bill. I estimated that the wage bill will probably come in around 325 million. Now, there's another very, very good account on X. A chap by the name of Craig Houlden, Liverpool fan, who looks at the finances of a number of clubs, who analyses the numbers more forensically than I do. And he was a bit more conservative with the expected drop of the wage bill. So he came in at around 344 million. But both of us were off by tens of millions because the wage bill appears, based on the Deloitte Football Money League reports, have come in at 387 million. So we were tens of millions, and we're not normally off by that much. And look, the reason I was massively surprised by that is we had no fewer than 6 top earners all leave the club in summer 23. Who were they? Naby Keita, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, James Milner, um, Bobby Firmino. Who else did we have? Jordan Henderson
Hendo,
and
yeah.
Fabinho. So 6. And based on the basic wages, which would probably amount to about 40 to 50 million pounds, and then you throw on bonuses and image rights payments and the likes of that on top, the 6 probably between them were costing Liverpool, in terms of wage bill, in the region of about 80 million pounds. So 80 million pounds wiped off by these guys leaving the club. So if you think that the wage bill in the last season that they were all there at the club was 373 or so million, wiping those wages away from that takes it to below 300 million. Then you take away the appearance money and the bonuses related to Champions League football. So then you're coming down further still. But you're on top of that adding in lesser bonuses and appearance money for Europa League. And we know that we signed 4 players in McAllister, in Szoboszlai, in Endo, and in Gravenberch. And, 3 of those players would have come in on fairly sizable wages, but not to the levels that perhaps Jordan Henderson was earning today. So overall, based on all of those factors, there was an expectation and a belief that it would come in substantially under. So I estimated it at 325, Greg at 344, and we were way off. And it just didn't make sense to me at all, and it still doesn't, nearly a week on, that wage bill ended up going up. So people have been banging on about, but it only increased by 14 million. So why are people complaining? Why are people making a fuss over nothing? It's the fact that it's actually not a difference of 14 million. It's the difference to what we thought it would be. And that's why we made a fuss. Now, in terms of the wage bill, so there's a lot of these websites out there that speculate on what player wages are, not only for Liverpool, but for other clubs as well. And generally, they're in it for the first team squad in and around the £130 million mark. Now, there was a report that was published by UEFA last year, and there was an extract of that which was subsequently deleted, interestingly, which actually showed that the actual wage bill is obviously in relation to all staff. If you extract the element that relates purely to the players, it was, I think, in the region of about 264 million in 22-23, when the wage bill overall was 323. So if we think that the wages for the first team squad are about £130 million mark, say, to get to 260 odd, you're essentially saying that all these bonus payments, the image rights, all the rest of it, doubled the earnings of these players. So that's where we get to. So we've got basic wages and sign-on fees added into that at about 130, bonus payments and the like for the first team squad about another 130. That gets us to the 260 odd. And then to get from 260 odd to 370, that's your coaches, your academy players, your executives, directors of HR, communication, sporting directors, and the like. Albeit the sporting director is allegedly now on the payroll of FSG and not of Liverpool. So that's interesting in terms of how that may or may not work. And that is how it's broken down. So when we get a few more details in the accounts that will be published in a few weeks' time, I'll hopefully post a thread just trying to explain how that works. But there will be fans who'll look at that and say, hold on, 264 million when the wage bill over was 373, and yet the basic wages are about 130. So did only a couple of dozen players really between them get 130 million pound of bonus payments? But that's the information from UEFA themselves. So there's no reason to suggest that's incorrect. And then it's really debate about, okay, so to get from 260 all the way to 270, just over 100 million pounds, the coaching staff, the academy players, and admin staff, and those couple of thousand match day staff really make up 100 million pounds plus difference. So that's where we basically get to. So a lot of detail there. Appreciate it might sound a bit confusing and convoluted, but in essence, 130 million basic wages, another 130 million plus of bonuses, and then the rest is all other staff employed by the club to get to in and around the 370 million, 380 million pound mark.
So would I be right to say that one of the topics that you've been asked most about the breakdown of the wages has been, we've always known that there's no dividends paid to FSG. We've always seen that and believe that. And I've always been fine about them taking a big payday in the end when they get the valuation of the club when they set up. But now you've got people, and look, a lot of people will call these tinfoil hat merchants, but I think they're just concerned fans with an honest question. A lot of people want to ask, is it possible that there is some kickback coming into FSG through the wage bill, be that executive bonuses or anything like that? It's a topic that I'm sure you've been asked quite a lot about, Mo, so I thought maybe I could get you to give a brief explanation of your thinking there.
So FSG are quite a large collective. We know about the likes of Gordon, John W. Henry, Tom Werner, LeBron James, perhaps one or two others, but it's a much larger group than that. Now, if there are directors of the club that are earning at the club, there has to be a level of disclosure within the accounts in terms of who the highest paid director is. And though the accounts don't show that, the amount that is normally flagged up is, I think, around £1.5 to £2 million. So does that mean that other directors, such as John W. Henry and co., are not taking money out of the club? We can't definitively say because the accounts neither confirm nor deny. But like I said, FSG is about much more than the individuals we're familiar with. So is it possible that there are others within FSG that are on the wage bill, but perhaps are classed as consultants? And what they're consulting over, who only knows? But is that possible? Yes. Is it plausible? Maybe, maybe not. But again, I can neither confirm nor deny because the accounts present very limited information. So and I'm talking in general terms, not specifically about FSG and Liverpool Football Club, but if an owner wants to take money out of a club, there are many ways that they can do that. And one of the things that somebody has rightly pointed out is there are more perhaps tax efficient ways of extracting money out of your company than through wages, because with wages you have to pay tax, and if it's a high amount of wages, then the taxes would be quite significant. But that's assuming the wages apply to somebody classed as earning that money in the UK. If they're attributed to earnings elsewhere, then perhaps different tax rules may apply. But yes, you're right. There was a lot of speculation about fans putting two and two together and coming up with the conclusion: look, wage bill unexpectedly increases, therefore FSG must be fleecing the club somehow through the wage bill. Can't say that they definitively are or they aren't, because, like I say, the counts don't prove one way or the other.
But it was certainly a surprise to many people that the wage bill rose. We're comfortable enough in that.
Oh, absolutely, and there's been a lot of suggestions about what it could have been. I mean, some have suggested that, well, maybe the deals are not as incentivized as they are. I'd struggle to believe that, though. And the evidence is in the club's accounts from a few years prior, when the club who'd been out of the Champions League went back into the Champions League. This is in 2017-18. The wage bill increased by £100 million in one season, from 208 to 308 million. And we were told that, yes, partly that was due to signings coming in, such as Mo Chatra, who joined in summer 2017, and we brought in two or three other signings that summer as well. But the bulk of it was explained by some new contracts, and most notably bonus payments related to competing in the Champions League and getting all the way to the final. That was the explanation for why the wage bill jumped 50% in 1 year, from 208 to 308 million. And that's a jump the likes of which, in terms of value, I've not seen amongst the top clubs in a single season. So that was a significant jump. So if these deals are as incentivized as we've always been led to believe, then that was almost a proof that, yes, as soon as we were in the Champions League, the wage bill skyrocketed. So it stands to reason, therefore, that when we exit the Champions League, the wage bill should come down, and it didn't.
I mean, it's very simplistic, but I think it gets the point across in what you've said, and I certainly appreciate the way you've broken that down, Mo. Thank you.